Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and the Lone Ranger, issue number 1. Dynamite Comics, baby, and this comic book is nothing but pure dynamite. TNT, it's dynamite. There's an AC/DC song somewhere there, but not my point. Look, I actually wish I would have grabbed this comic book physical copy. I think I might actually go back and grab this book physical copy. That's right. So, purchased it online. Now also thinking about purchasing the physical copy. How often does that happen with me with with an indie comic book, all right, with a non-Marvel, non-DC? Like, wow, man, this is not one of the big two, and I loved this comic book. We're talking about one of the first superheroes. Okay, maybe not a superhero, but you get what I'm saying. One of the masked heroes, all right, ever. They make this story relevant like hell. Now, is this modern day? No. And while the Lone Ranger could potentially work modern day, I haven't actually seen a modern day Lone Ranger take that would work, but that's not the point. I'm sure somebody could come along and do something like that. Maybe it has, and I just haven't read the story yet. But in this particular case, we just have this amazing story from back in around the 1850s, before the 1850s. Basically the 18s, all right, somewhere around there, somewhere around the 1800s. Fantastic story right here. Holy crap, this was a fantastic story. Let's get into who made this fantastic story, because credit where credit is due. This is called The Devil's Rope. You're going to understand why this is called The Devil's Rope in a little while. Written by Mark Russell. Art and colors by Bob Q. Almost looked like barbecue. I swear I almost said barbecue for a moment. Bob Q, love you, man. Letters. Hassan, okay, jeez. Okay, come on. I speak Arabic. I'm not even going to try this. If it was actually written in Arabic, I'd probably have a better chance of trying to get this out. But like, what the frick am I looking at? Is that a Q? Is that a Q? I can't see. Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou. Yeah, no. Sorry. Don't know that one. Hassan. So Hassan did the letters. You my man, Hassan. John Cassaday and Jose Villarubia. Villarubia, sorry. Mike Allred, look at that. And Francisco Francavilla did a bunch of variant covers. Okay, and I know that there are like 4 variant covers or so. So, okay, awesome. Man, Allred's coming up all over the place this year. What's up with that? So, a whole lot of really cool stuff in this comic book, dude. Oh my God. So, this takes place in Texas. Lone Ranger's from Texas, all right? The California hero would be Zorro. We'll get more into that later on in the Comic Book University. But for right now, we're in Texas. It's Lone Ranger. Dude, oh, it actually says right here. Duh, what the heck's wrong with me? Texas, 1887. So that makes sense. Anyway, the reason why I said about that is because barbed wire is used here. The Devil's Rope, barbed wire, okay? I didn't know that was what it was called, but I immediately made that recognition once I realized barbed wire was going to have a lot to do with what was going on here. I'm going to get into the history of barbed wire kind of in a little bit, and you guys are probably thinking right now, that's stupid, Bill. Why would you do that? Wait for it, and suddenly you'll be surprised at how interesting it is. So, basically, there's a bunch of cattle ranchers, and Texas was divided by barbed wire. Yeah, I know. What do you call it? The barbed wire fences started going up all over the place, and these guys came along, and they're just like, what the heck? Hey, man, I've got the city, I've got the province, not the province, the municipality. I've got the county. I've got the entire county tattooed to my freaking horse over here, man. Like, I know what all the property lines are supposed to be. And this is obviously a free-range cowboy. But even then, he's still following the tenements of we're allowed to graze our cattle here. But these other guys came along and they decided to put up a bunch of barbed wire illegally in places that it's not supposed to be. Like, you're over my property lines. And the argument in the beginning of this is so perfect. It is perfect. I love this conversation in the beginning. Oh, I didn't need to see the Lone Ranger once in this comic book. I just needed for this conversation to continue because it was that good. It was that realistic. It was that historically accurate. Holy crap. More than enough kudos to the creators of this comic book, man, of this issue. Wow, that was good. Like, that moved me. All right, that was good. Moving on past the first 2 pages, I know. Like, I'm already enraptured with this comic book. The Lone Ranger hears some shooting. He goes up, sees somebody's been killed, figures, let's go and find out what's going on here because he is a hero. He's a regular human being. He's a hero. And he's going to go and he's going to try and handle some business. So he gets to this area. There's this dude who's going to be running for U.S. Senate. And he is about as corrupt as your typical politician that you can expect. And yeah, very historically accurate, the things that he's saying. The things that he wants to happen actually happen, and it divides Texas. And why everybody in Texas is like, we should be our own state. One of the main reasons why you could never have been your own state is because of the nonsense that was happening here. Just saying. Historically accurate. So the Lone Ranger decides to try and help out these people, and he does. And now we've got one hell of a story in the wait. I am waiting in spurs for the next issue to come out. This is a riveting, not mind-bending, I shouldn't say mind-bending, but like, dude, if I had the physical copy in my hand, I was reading for this for the first time, I would have, honestly, I swear to God, I would have put some dents in the comic book, some folds in it, because I would have been sitting there like, my hands would have been gripping. This is such great storytelling. I don't care if you've never read The Lone Ranger before. I don't care if you never saw the TV show. I don't care if you grew up with that stuff. I don't care if this is the first time you ever heard of The Lone Ranger. Here's a guy with no superpowers who puts on a mask, who goes out to kick some butt. And he realizes this is going to be bigger than him, so he's got to go and get his friend Tonto, who, and I hate that name because I'm Italian, and Tonto means stupid in Italian, but whatever. What do you call it? He's got to go out and get his friend Tonto I hate that, to help him out. And, yeah, and it's really four of them, because it's not just Lone Ranger and Tonto, it's also their horses, who are very well trained, and they're freaking awesome also. So there are four main characters in this. It's more like two main characters and two backup characters who are going to handle this. And guys, this is so accurate to the mythology of the Lone Ranger. This is a solid book. This is probably one of the best. I'm trying to remember the name of the comic book company that does, what are they called? I'm going to remember afterwards, because I actually own stock in them and I just don't do anything with it. Why should I? What the heck are they called? Oh my God. Anyway, they have Cowboys and Aliens. All right. So, this actually feels like something that they would do. If they would have the license, and I'm surprised they don't have the license for this, but Dynamite did it instead. They did a bang up job. This is a fantastic comic book. And honestly, it's hard not to just say, forget everything else that happened this week. This is my pick of the week. I look at all these comic books that I read this week, guys. I look at all these comic books that I read. Let me get rid of this Marvel Previews issue. All these comic books that I read. And honestly, and there's a bunch more of digital copies. There's some good comics out this week, man. Some really good comics. Chris Claremont's back in the X-Men, all right? And what do you call it? The Champions with the Dungeons and Dragons now, and Sleepwalker's back. And, dude, Batman mixing it up with the Max. And just, dude. And yet, Lone Ranger, yo, this was, for me, amazing. Why? They actually go into the history of barbed wire here. Not actually telling the history of barbed wire. There were three main factors to why World War I was different from all the other wars that happened before it. Because there were other world wars, they just weren't called world wars. This was called the Great War, but three main factors here. One of them was machine guns. The other, which I'll get to that again in a second. Basically, there's also barbed wire, obviously, is one of them, and trenches. Trenches was the other, okay? Trenches have been used before. Barbed wire was actually mainly, it started in the American Midwest, but then later on it started being used elsewhere. I can't remember the first time it's been used in war, but I know it's been used in several wars before. Machine guns were actually interesting too, because while we've had Gatling guns in the Civil War and things like that, the first time actual hand machine guns were ever really used was in, if I remember correctly, the Russian-German War, the Russian-Japanese War, okay, which is, while America and Canada, so both we's, were fighting the War of 1812, they were fighting that, and that was, actually, no, that would have been much later. What am I thinking about? War of 1812? And no, this would have been much less. Sorry, I'm like a century off. That's like around the Boxer Rebellion, which is around 1901 to 1903, 1904, something like that. But anyway, barbed wire was crucial in warfare. Barbed wire was also crucial in dividing the West and fighting Cold Wars, basically, in America. Look, if you're going to separate your land from other people, you just draw a line, right, in a map, and you have to follow that way. But what about your cattle or other people's cattle coming over? What about physical representations? Because people aren't going to be doing a pace count when they're walking and grazing their land. People are going to come over to your land. So instead, what do? You have to build fences. You have to build fences. So think about how fences work. Big, tall fences, whatever kind of fence, and all that money you're spending for all that lumber to build up these fences. I don't care if it's the big, thick, heavy wood where you got post like that, or I don't, because how many trees are you cutting down to do that? How much work to do all that stuff? You don't have fences. What do? Just one stray, one colt like leaves, or one bull leaves, okay, one cow, and you got to go and herd this guy up again. How much manpower are you using to watch the other herd, to watch the herd itself, and to go after that stray? Imagine if there's more than one stray. How much manpower, how much are you paying to get that? How many bodies are you putting out there to do that? There's a lot involved in that, a whole lot. And fencing costs a lot, even if you're just talking about little white picket fences and silly stuff like that. So it's more of a figurative wall that people can actually jump over easily. Barbed wire, however, changed all of that stuff. Even just wire fences, like, it's not going to hurt a cow, but it's going to cause a lot of inconvenience for a cow or horse or something to go and try and push through that. It's like, ow, I'm being cut. You know what? It's not worth it. Let me just go back this way. All right? Barbed wire. You put a whole bunch of posts in the ground, and you could separate them a lot further and just start stringing some barbed wire all around it. Hammer in a single nail with each one to make sure that, you wrapped it around, the nail keeps it up there, and boom, and just keep on going all the way around. You want 2 strands, you can have 2 strands, whatever you want, but barbed wire, dude, it made for so much easier life. So much less money was spent. But the problem is, people would also, since it was also so quick to put up, people could illegally put up barbed wire fences over land that they didn't actually own. And there was the problem with the free-range cowboys, with natives, with new settlers coming in. And if they see a fence, they think, oh, somebody else owns this land. But what if you put barbed wire over land that you don't actually own? There's a whole lot more and like to me, it's an amazing story. Really long video for the Long Ranger, but dude, this was an amazing comic book. Just nothing but kudos, hats off. All that stuff. This was a great comic book. The guys who did this, the people who were involved in this comic book, hats off. I really hope a lot of people get to see this video. I hope a lot of people get to see how good this comic book is, so you can go and pick up this comic book. Wow, this was good. Guys, grab the comic book. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.